monthly live roundtable. We're gonna have a few people dropping in. Some scheduling conflicts. One of our team, our newest team member, Michelle, finally got to do her honeymoon. They've been married for 6 years, and just shortly after they got married, somebody got sick, and then one of them got sick, and then they had a family emergency, and then COVID hit, and so now they finally got their Michelle and her husband finally got their much deserved and much needed honeymoon. So congratulations to them. So she won't be here this week, which is fine. And Paul's out doing saving the world from his hero thing, and is dealing with an emergency to help another client. So he's on full focus there. So they will both be missed, and Brina and Scott will be coming and joining us shortly. So so we're good to go. So for now, it's going to be the four of us, and and so the topic of this month is really what we're looking at, folks, is trying to understand exactly what do we do when the economy begins to shift, right? In this case, shifting in a bit of a negative situation. So, as we're out there talking to customers, and in the other side of the businesses that we deal with, we are networking with other marketing agencies and so on. We're beginning to hear the feelings of had to lay somebody off. We're struggling with sales. We are dealing with inflationary pressures in the business and so on. And so the conversation comes up is we need to start cutting back. And where do they cut back? Well, they think they can cut back on their marketing spend. And we're here to say that that's actually the opposite of what you need to be doing, because as DTC marketing heroes, we know that in these times, when everyone else is cutting back, those that win are ramping up. And really, that's the overall focus of today's conversation. So, we're all nodding yes and no, or if you're watching this right now, you're nodding yes as well. So Sharon, when I mentioned that to the panel today, you were like, absolutely. So you're quite passionate with your answer. So what do you mean when you say when you said that today?
So I think the biggest thing that people have to understand is, we're always going to go through this. You're going to have this time where we have like this big boost and you're making a lot of money, you're doing really great. And then our economy is going to have a downturn. It happens consistently, whatever that is, I forget what they say all the time, like every 15 years or whatever. So, one of the things I always kind of find it funny is when I talk to businesses and they're like, oh, we're doing so well and we're so busy, we don't need any more business. So like, we just want to back off on marketing. Well, then they get to this point and they're like, now we really need to back off marketing. And right. So one of the things I tell people all the time, and I mean, I was a business consultant before being a Google organizational company. And so when I was a business consultant, I told people 10% of your revenue at all times needs to be peeled back and spent on marketing. Yeah. And people would be 10%. But that's absolutely a very valid number. So, and sometimes that 10% is not as much. And then maybe, when it becomes not as much and you're trying to compete with everybody, maybe that you got to figure out how that can be 15%.
Yep.
But the one thing, and I know we're all going to say the same thing. The one thing you cannot stop doing is marketing. And the biggest thing I can tell you all the time, especially like with Google, when you're posting every single week on your Google business profile panel, there's no turning back. Right. When you stop doing that, you are going to see your search numbers drop. It doesn't matter when you're doing it, whether it's in your peak season and your best of your times or your worst of your times, you cannot stop the pattern that you create. When that growth is there, it's got to stay there. And it's not even that too, like, it's making sure you're constantly understanding how Google's algorithms are changing.
Yeah.
And that you're following that and you're making the content changes and making the necessary changes within your Google Business Profile panel and your website with what's happening in Google, because I can't scream enough at the top of my lungs. I mean, they had a massive, massive algorithm change last October. and it is beginning to extremely impact businesses. And another major change with the Google Business Profile panel back this February. And if you're not paying attention to what that is and you're not going down that road and making those modifications to how you're talking, Google's now looking at you in a different way than they used to.
I think
You
that's
can't
really
afford
important.
that.
I think that's really important to understand, because I mean the key thing behind that is really understanding who is helping you in your business. What are the tools and resources that you have that in this case here are free? And so if you want to be seen, you want to be found, um, and your budget is tight. You're trying to extend that budget as much as possible. Leverage on the tools that you already have, right? And so double down on your exercise. And just to bring back what Sharon was saying in terms of the posting. In the last Google conversation that we had, Sharon specifically talking about the timing when you start to post on Google. There's a cadence that they're looking for, and when you break the cadence, there's a problem. Sharon, can you just touch upon that cadence real quick?
So I'm not for sure which piece you were
The
talking
seven
about.
days, the 7 days,
Oh, yeah,
14, and all that.
So Google basically they look at your panel as often as you change it. Same way with your website. So if you put a post up one week and the next week you do not, and you do nothing new to your panel, Google's going to look at it and go, okay, and they're going to give you another week, and they're going to come back in another week, and they're going to review your panel again. And if you don't, they're going to come back in 2 weeks. And then after that, it's like 4 weeks. And then after that, it becomes like 6 months. And then after that, they're like, well, you don't care about your business. So clearly we don't need to either.
Right. And
So the
that
strength of your brand begins to decrease.
And that's the key point, right? Is so if as we're coming into tourism season and travel season, and at a school and all that stuff, this is when people are beginning to start booking their travel plans and so on. So if you're relying on search and Google location and all that stuff to help out with that, this is one of the areas that you can leverage, and it's not adding additional cost to your business. And we'll have a little bit of discussion around copy and generating and things like that. Hey, Scott, just welcome. I saw you came in and out, so welcome. I'm glad you're here. I wanted to acknowledge Scott because today's topic, it was really inspired by Scott and I's discussion today. So, Scott, thank you so much for that. So, George, you've been in the marketing space for quite some time, and you've been like Sharon and myself. You've been through these cycles, and you've seen where clients cut spend and things like that. What do you say to somebody that's kind of going, I can't drive my advertising budget, I can't increase. What else can I do, and why should you not back off of the marketing spend right now, the marketing activities?
Well, I mean, I'm like Sharon. I agree exactly with what you're saying, and she's just talking about it from the perspective of Google. But you have to think of the way people buy. People don't just buy because you sent them something. And when times are tough, they're tough for you. They're likely going to be tough for your people. Right. Your message should change, adjust it so that you're talking to someone who's, got a struggle they have to address, or has a customer set that, has to, overcome something. So your tone, your message can change, but you really have to go after it. Now, keep in mind, other people who aren't listening to this podcast are thinking, man, economy's tight, so I got to cut back. That helps you elongate the difference between you as the guy who continues to aggressively market against those that are backing off.
Yeah.
So, play your cards right, and I think you're going to be rewarded for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point in that context, is that as they're pulling back, it gives you an opportunity to fill that messaging void in that space. And so that's really a great strategy. So I think part of that then would be also to look around and see who's not, if the winery down the street is always posting, and all of a sudden they've laid off their social media person, and they're going to quote unquote bring it in house or let someone do it over the summer, and you see that the quality of the posting's gone down, or the content, or the volume of the content's gone down, fill that void, because customers clearly are looking for it, and so on. Jade, what's your thoughts on this conversation, and where we can go with this?
Well, I just kind of want to echo what everybody's saying. It's all about making sure that you're providing value no matter what. And I think one of the most impactful presentations I've seen is like a conference attendee. I was at a Keep Certified Partner conference a couple of years ago. I was watching a woman named Renee Badakian talk about how she
fellow Canadian,
right? Talking about how, I mean, we're talking about like flexibility and resiliency, right? I mean, is there no better example than COVID, right?
Right.
She was talking about how when COVID happened, she pivoted her model to like, hey, I implement your marketing automation to coaching, but like from a more like emotional level. And the way that she described it in her presentation is she showed Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but as it applies to business. So like everybody on the bottom is like, I'll save you time, I'll save you money. But that's the problem. Everybody saves you time and money. So if you start including stuff that's higher up on the hierarchy of needs, like helping people feel value, helping people feel like they belong, helping people feel like they've accomplished something, like they matter. And that's what she started including in her messaging, in her, hey, this is done with you services, not done for you services. The done for you was, we save you time and money. The done with you is, we're going to make you feel like you have ownership and you feel good about this. And it costs more, and she made more money.
But again, you're speaking to the point, and that's to George's point about listening. So, and your take phrase, which I'll always credit for you for saying it, but I think I need to get it tattooed on my body somewhere. It'd be my first is seen, heard, and loved. Yeah. And so in that conversation, you're listening to where they're at. And I think if we tie the two together, that's something where we can, bring this message. And the way the screens are set up, you're Jade, you're over there, George in the middle. So bringing this together is how can we take that messaging and really bring it forward to understanding where you're at. So if I'm just thinking out loud here, but if you're in a club and you're starting to see cancellations in your club, maybe change the game of the club, right? Maybe this is the opportunity to leverage it, George, to our conversation that we've been having about the digital wine club. And maybe this is your opportunity to implement digital wine club, right? And go through there and provide that extra value, and position it. Hey, you know what? Yeah, things are tough right now, things like that. Why don't you come on in and experience a tasting for your local community? And you know what? We're going to be doing some fun things here in terms of some great food opportunities and all that kind of stuff. But just a point for people to get together and bring everyone to an inclusive experience that doesn't cost them additional money, doesn't cost you additional expenses, but creates this experience that they walk away from feeling amazing because they had a great experience in this time when we can't afford possibly to doing all the things that we want to be doing, right? I think that's kind of, if I'm taking away, I'm starting to assimilate Jade's your idea of building community and things like that. How would you kind of build upon that loose example?
Me or who?
You, yes, you, Jade.
How would I build on that? Like specific examples of how?
Yeah, so in the context of community and really leveraging the community messaging, how would you be able to build upon that?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing to like get into everybody's heads and make sure that this is like the foundation for anything we talk about when it comes to community is that it's ironic because we're trying to figure out how like you can convey messaging and value, but ultimately the community is actually the place where you should kind of be stepping back the most, because it's people are there because of you, but they'll stay because of how they feel when they're with everybody else, the connections that they've made. So like, yeah, you're going to take the time, and we've had many conversations about collecting data, It's not as hard as you think. Having people fill out a form, getting to know them, getting to know someone is just another phrase for collecting their data. Like, I know a lot of data about my best friends because I know them, right? So like when I know things at people, I can have a party at my house and I'm inviting people I know, but they don't really know each other, but they're all there because of me. But it's not a party if I stand there and I'm like, everyone, look at me and look at me talk. I'm going to entertain you the whole time. No, it's a party if I'm like, hey, you two are both from Minnesota, and like, kind of like connect
Yeah.
people based on the things that I know about them.
Right.
So the value should be about the container that you're creating. And that actually puts a lot less pressure on you because the value isn't like you standing there being awesome all the time. Look at me, look at me. That's what social media and like authority building is for. And your Google presence, like making sure that you take yourself seriously and you're putting yourself out there. But once they're in, bring them in and introduce them to the family so they feel welcome and not like awkward in the doorway.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I think I love the fact that I put you guys on the spot a little bit here, because a lot of the best ideas and the best discussions come just organically up. And that's exactly, Jade, what I was hoping you would say, because again, this could be a low cost, no cost, massive opportunity for you to leverage and build upon community and really bring people together and allow them to share. You be the vessel, you're building your facility, your property becomes the vessel for that to happen. And that's really kind of the way that would work. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. So Scott, I want to bring you in on the last topic of this portion, because really it was your inspiration for our discussion today. So if you could, well, share with us what you're hearing in your interviews with people, but also what do we need to do when we look at our emails? Because I know the tendency is, oh, I got to blast, I got to send, I got to drive sales, I got to do all that stuff, right? That's what people are hearing, and that's what they're feeling. What is your say to that?
Sure. So I'm not sure exactly what all has been shared by everybody already. But when Mark and I chatted a little bit earlier about this, kind of on this topic, this has been something that I've been involved in a lot of conversations about. My business coach has had similar conversations with her clients and prospects. And I knew that this was coming. So about a year ago, probably about a year ago, I was doing some joint webinars with other people, and we were talking about this particular thing. The economy, we are going to start feeling the effects of that in our businesses. The question was when. It's not if, but it's when. And now with more conversations that I'm having, I'm seeing this a lot more. So I had a conversation last week with somebody, and they're using an email marketing automation software. And I've been privileged to help them build a lot of automations for their business. Some of it has been internal processes. Some of it has been lead generation processes. Some of it has been nurture. And so they reached out to me and they were like, we've just been really getting a low number of leads from our website. So, and I don't feel like I'm getting a return on my investment for this software. I'm thinking about canceling it. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And so this person was like, hey, can you take a look and see, are our emails getting delivered? Are we having any issues? That type of thing. So obviously, I was like, okay, this is not a good scenario. You don't want to get rid of a tool that is really helping you run your business.
Absolutely.
So as I was taking a look at it, I discovered that realistically, she has one lead gen campaign running, has 47 contacts in it, which is to her existing list, which has already bought this particular service from her likely before.
Great.
So you're not going to get a lot of leads for this. And the traffic that's been going to her website is actually generating a decent number of leads into a internal business process that we had built out. There were 29 that have kind of been in limbo since at least November. So there's been no forward movement. So it's like, well, here's 29 people that you could be reaching out to and trying to get them to go further down the customer journey. And then I was looking at, just some of the other things that they have going. And I came back and I was like, well, number one, you're not the only one that's concerned. Okay. You are not alone. This is not the only feeling that you have. I showed the data, like your emails, you're getting a 74% open rate from this one automation, which is like amazing. Now, that being said, I said, I'm surprised that you're getting a 74% open rate, because where your website is hosted is on not one, not two, but 3 block lists.
Jesus.
3. And one of the block lists is negatively affecting emails going to Microsoft users. So I said the 25% that aren't opening your emails are probably Microsoft users would be my guess. But I said, so you're getting good email open rates based upon what I'm seeing here. Now, they're not clicking, so the content of this particular automation probably isn't resonating with them. But you are getting some leads in from your website. But this other lead gen automation that we built out has a big fat 0 number of people in it. That tells me nobody's going to your website. What are you doing to drive traffic to your website? What other marketing activities are you doing? You cannot. The worst number in business is 1. And if you're running one lead gen campaign and you're using one media, email, to run that, you're going to suffer hard times. And of course, you're not going to get a return on investment in that tool. It's the same thing as if you only use social media to do marketing, or you only use direct mail, or whatever that it is. 1 is a bad number. And so studies have shown, Harvard Business Review did some studies several years ago, and this has kind of prompted the conversation that I've had with a lot of people. It's during these times when we start to see the economy shrink. So we have high inflation. We see a large number of people losing their jobs. People are tightening their grip on their wallet, both individuals and businesses. The studies that they have shown from all of the recessions in the past, the businesses that use this time to do 2 things. They improve operational efficiencies and they double down on their marketing. Those are the ones that tend to better weather the economic turbulence and exit in a much stronger position once it's all passed.
Right.
But those who took action of like, oh my God, we just got to start cutting things off. Like, got to get rid of this tool. We can't pay for that anymore. We can't be doing that. Oh my God, we're spending too much money on this marketing activity. Oh, we can't spend that. We cut it out. The people who cut those type of expenses to the bone ended up either going bankrupt and shutting their doors, or being way behind their competition when the economy lightened up and turned favorable. And now it took years for them to even try to catch up to their competitors who were doing all of the right things. And that's why it's so important that we have to check ourselves that we're not being reactionary when we start to see these types of things crop up in our economy, in our world, in our business, and we take a methodical, thoughtful approach. What do we need to be doing? Because cutting cost typically is not the answer, but it's our knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, I think, and that's why I wanted you to kind of close this segment off, because that's exactly it. I mean, there's so much there to unpack of what you said, but let's just kind of go from the back and move forward here for a moment. I think we've all now said, all 5 of us have said, this is the time you don't cut your marketing activities. You may reallocate, you may readjust, you may refocus, but you don't cut. And if you can, you double down, as you were saying, Scott, and I think all of you actually said the double down, but you definitely go through and increase your focus on the advertising. Now, the other thing that I heard there is the source of the inbound source of leads and where they're coming from, right? So going to circle back to Sharon for a second, and this is one of the key areas that you need to be focusing on. You need to be found. Yes, SEO is there both from your website, but what we're saying right now is not only do you do your website, but you have to pay attention to your Google business profile. That is the number one place. If you have like anywhere to focus right now, you've got to focus on that from a lead gen perspective. We've been seeing this at the one of the companies we're working with, Sharon, who we have permission to talk about numbers and so on. We've been seeing a dramatic increase in weddings, in corporate events, and in just straight up tasting reservation experiences, all because we're doing the right things on our Google Business Panel. So now I want to pull that into what Scott was just saying. So if you're not there, get there, please. And we've got tools and resources to help you with that. But now those leads come in, and those are new leads that are going into follow-up campaigns. So they come, they land on your page, they fill out a form, they start a reservation process, they don't finish it. We've got an abandoned cart conversation. How do we go through and follow up with those individuals to get them in? Let's leverage our email. One of the things I also heard is to Scott, back to Scott's point, and this is really a big key area, is that open rates of 76%, I think you said. On the last 3 campaigns that I ran over the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, we're pushing 75-80% open rates. And here's an interesting thing. For those of you who've been listening for a while and participating and been on the email discussions, we look at email lists with the idea of an asset and a liability. And we define loosely an asset is anybody that's engaged with your email content within the last, call it 60, but technically 90 days. And a liability is anybody that has not engaged with your email content 90 days plus. Could be 91 days. We don't care. That's the line that we have drawn, is it's 90 days. We've got so much empirical data behind that. That's a good number. So what we did, in knowing that this was coming with this one specific winery, we intentionally only emailed the people that had engaged with their content in the last 30 days. Okay. So the really like just awesome assets, the super assets. And we did this for January, February, March, April. 4 months, we only emailed the people that were hyper engaged with us. What did that look like? They were opening and clicking links. That was the deciding factor. Did they click a link? Fast forward, at the end of April, last week, we brought on a new team member, and she went out, and I thought, well, let's just try this out. Let's see what happens. We sent out an email to the entire list of Reds, 2 separate emails, one to the assets, and one to the liabilities, which it's a no-no, right? You don't send it to the liabilities. Here's the numbers. 2,100 people were on the active asset liabilities list. Okay, 2,100. After we sent out this email to the people that had not been active in 90 plus days, this large broadcast, we picked up 1,000 new engaged contacts. Okay. We basically, I don't know what the math is, but we increased from 2,000 to 3,000 contacts in an email, active. And what were the conversions? The conversions were, not only did those 1,000 people open, but they also clicked. We had 1,000 new contacts clicking emails. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know how to get 1,000 clicking emails in 24 hours by not doing anything other than not sending to them, right? So there are ways that you can weather these storms if you are strategic and think about this. So now we can welcome them back. And so, Jade, this is where we're pulling some of your ideas into it, is those people haven't been active, many of them, 6 months. So times have changed, things happen. We have new community. We have new opportunities for you to connect with us and also to connect with other guests. This is your opportunity to invite them back and welcome them back to the new and improved winery, right? So that's kind of where that all plays into it. And then George, I think the other part of it too, when we look at the digital wine club, when we look at content and specifically focusing on all of those messagings, it allows for these new 1,000 people to get a whole new experience of the winery, right? And again, what did it cost us? Kind of nothing if the systems are already in place, right? So those are increase your open rates, do what you need to do on that side. And we've got audits and everything for you to be able to do that. And Scott can help out with that. Figure out your Google. We've got audits and everything with that, with Sharon. Figure out your content. Look at implementing a digital club, and George can help out with that. And then really drive your community and really support and help them to become part of a larger circle, especially in this time when everyone's cutting back and people are struggling. So I only see good wins on all of that stuff in a time when everyone else is woe is me and the sky is falling. Any thoughts on kind of that? I'd love to just kind of, George, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think if we look back at COVID and talk about like the perfect test case, I think you saw at the very beginning that everybody did what you would expect. Everybody cut back because, if you were in, hospitality, travel, retail, you were really hurt. You knew you were going to hurt, but everybody cut back.
Right.
And then within a month, and as a matter of fact, I had a couple customers say, hey, you know what's going on? And they literally, hey, we're stopping. Now, in my case, they weren't stopping their marketing. It was some operational work. A month later, the same people who were, thinking the right way said, hey, we're coming back and we're doing these other things. Or they were engaging me, hey, let's brainstorm some ideas.
Right.
So it's a normal reaction. And COVID really challenged everybody. If you look at exactly what's going on now the same way, you can really, start thinking outside of the box. What is it that people are thinking to do different within what you can offer easily?
Yep.
And then deal with your marketing or make updates to your marketing accordingly. Because, for us, we were in online marketing at the very beginning. Even we were like, oh my God, what's going on? And then, we started reaching out to every single one of the customers we've done business with in the last, that we're doing business or we're doing business last month. And we had a big, everybody, I think in our industry had a big upswing in business. But, in hindsight, it was obvious. But at the time, you're like, what's going on?
Right.
So, look at this, which isn't nearly as drastic or as so obvious, the same way. What can we do different? How can I think outside the box and one up everybody else that's in my industry?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. One of the other things too is look around and see, are certain wineries cutting back on activities? I know with some of the ones that we're talking to, they're cutting their quote unquote signature events. They're cutting them back. And so good on them. That's the direction that they want to go, but holy opportunity for you to step in and fill that void. Right.
And now's the time when the world's opening back up.
Yeah.
That people want these, to go to these types of things. But
right.
When those businesses contract and they're like, oh, that's too big of an expense for us, so we're going to cut that out. Yikes. That's a massive misstep. But a huge opportunity for those that say, oh, we haven't been doing that, or we need to do more of these.
Yeah. So Sharon, any thoughts? I know you were nodding there for a bit. Any closing thoughts on this topic?
Well, really the biggest thing I can say is it's a couple things. First of all, if you're not aware of the fact that your Google Business Profile panel is literally the single most important piece of your marketing when you're trying to bring local search to you, you need to watch some of our other interviews because it is. And so it is the first place Google goes to learn about your business and the first place they're sending search. So your website is super important and I will never take that away from you. But when it comes to local search and you're trying to drive people to your location, your Google Business Profile panel is the leader for that. It's the first place they're landing, and it needs to look as good, if not better, than your website and be more informative.
Yeah, and that's a critical thing, and we're starting to see at John's winery, we're starting to see the impact of that, because one of the things that I was not aware of until Sharon really we walked through a lot of that in some upcoming complimentary training and things that we're putting together. There was, as you're driving along, and if you've got Google Maps up on your phone or in your car, what's now happening is, as I'm driving past properties, I'm seeing, hey, pop-up events are showing up. Oh, wow, that's really cool. And Sharon, I'm going to steal one of Sharon's ideas here, and you can expand on it a little bit, is if it's Tuesday and you're having tasting, that's an event. Even though you do it 7 days a week, set it up as a tasting event for today, because as people are driving by or searching in the area, they're going to see that there's this special tasting experience. It's your standard one, but to them, they've never seen it before. But more importantly, it's showing up on their maps, and they're like, oh, and it's just that one little subtle, oh, look at that. They click on it. Oh, look at that. And then they go through, and it's those little things. Sharon, can you explain a little bit more specifically how that works? Because I thought that was a brilliant idea.
Yeah. So on your mobile phone, if you have Google Maps as your, maps that you use, you can click on events to see what's in your area. But if you can also follow people. So if you're following the winery and the winery has an event and you're near it, it's going to pop up the event because they followed you on Google Maps. But even if not, and they're in your area and they're just they click on the little event tab to see what's going on in the area, you're popping up. And they can search today, tomorrow, this week, this weekend, next week, this month, and next month.
Right. So what I love about this from a bit of a hack is, let the big guys spend the money to get them to the region, right? Let those guys drop tons of money, and then you pick up when they're driving around, looking and driving to get to that venue. Oh, look, we've got this little thing over here, and they can dart in and possibly before they get to the big place, or maybe after, and come in. Because again, craft in the craft side of the industry, we've got a real great opportunity to provide a lot more value than some of the larger international firms, and so it's a great opportunity there. Jade, what's your kind of closing thoughts on this portion of our discussion today?
Well, I don't have a lot to add to Google, especially in Sharon's here. But when it comes to providing value, to be seen and to market yourself in what turbulent economic times, I think it just goes back to that hierarchy of needs, because that can be talked about both in your messaging publicly and internally when they arrive. So that's something that can be taken into consideration with any of the Heroes platforms here. You can speak from a place of authenticity in your marketing. And if you just speak like the way that you actually talk as a human, make your stupid jokes, say your polarizing statements, be your truest self. Don't try to be a people pleaser. Just be your authentic self in your website copy, so that when people Google you, they can feel an actual connection with you, and not just, you'll save me time and money, like literally everybody else. Because that's going to show up in your Google. It's going to show up when the business finally captures you and starts email marketing you. Speak as a human being. And then when they start following you on social channels, don't say the same crap that everybody is saying. Provide not just value in your expertise, but value from your perspective of that expertise.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so important. And then when they buy and they enter your family, they're going to feel even more prepared to be welcome, because they should feel, if you're doing a good job, they should feel like they already know you when they get there.
Fantastic. And that's the benchmark to look into is do they feel that? And how do you find out? You ask.
Ask
them. Yeah. One of the things and I don't know, I don't have detailed fact about this yet, but I'm thinking that if every time there's been these downturns, missteps in the economy, what we see is that ad pricing goes down. right? So we will, I suspect, and we'll get confirmation in the next couple of days or so. But I suspect that the other thing to consider is that ad pricing is going to go down, so you can stretch your dollar farther with that. So that's going to be something to also look out for. Because without Paul on today, we don't have that Facebook meta conversation brought to us. But that's something to look into. And like I said, I'm going to reach out to Paul and see if we can at least, if nothing else, do just a quick recording, and I'll put that up for everyone. Okay, cool. So let's so that's the first half. So let's shift the conversation in the second half, and so we're halfway through Q2, right? So entering into the second month of the quarter. So and also from a tourism perspective and from a growth perspective, new people are being hired at wineries. Staff's beginning to pick up. We're going to be picking up university students in another, I guess, maybe a couple weeks, and there's all of that going on. What if I were to say to you, I'm going to say to you, you have a season coming up, and for your marketing, what are the things that you need to do, because you're going to get an influx of people, new customers, right? Because you've done all the other things right, and all the lead gen stuff and everything's coming in. But what would you say that from the perspective of what do you need to do to clean up your act, if you haven't already, in each of your respective areas, to welcome in and be able to manage and handle the influx of new customers? So,
Can I start?
Yes, please. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So in marketing, we use the term promoter or ambassador. And this is or raving fan. There's a book called Raving Fans. If you haven't read it, you should read it. These are the people that you have in your family right now, your customers, your regulars, shall we say, especially in this industry. These are the ones, this is the source of your cheapest lead generation, because referrals are free. Referrals are free. So the more you can be proactive about talking to your family, and not just asking when you need things. That's why, treating them like family and being kind and authentic and letting them, the community is a place for them to be heard, have tastings and let them have ownership and get them excited about their experiences. It's not all about you, right? So if they feel amazing at your business, I promise you, people are chatty McCathy's, gossipy McGossipsons online. I'm a parent. I am in tons of parent Facebook groups. I'm in, moms in my town Facebook group. I'm in moms of multiples in my county because I have twins. I'm in, buy sell groups in my community. I'm looking to buy a house, so I'm in house, shopping literally. And people are like, "Where do you get your hair done?" I don't even Google things anymore. I ask people I trust.
Interesting.
Sorry, Sharon. Okay, that's not
No,
true.
you're fine.
I Google everything. That's a total lie. People are like, "Jade, how do you fix this problem?" I'm like, "I'll tell you."
I'm now the expert of everything.
Right. I'm so smart. I'm so smart. But honestly, the best place to start for the cheapest, because we're talking about, constricted budgets, right? Talk to the people that are already raving fans and formalize, or another word for formalizing is automate, right? Automate the process of asking for referrals. Give them links to your Google profile. Give them links to your website. So when you're delivering your content, continue to send traffic to your website. So Google and these types of, trackers know that you have a high traffic website that's very popular. But nothing's better than word of mouth and chatty Cathy's online. So make them happy, because they are going to say things whether you like it or not.
Well, so that I think that's a fantastic point, and it brings up two elements, right? One is make sure that you talk to the team that's doing your training and embed this into the training. You're going to be bringing on some new people or returning people. It's a great opportunity to instill new processes, data, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. Anyway, sorry. Sorry, I just had to go there. It was one of those things. But how do we embed this into the culture, into the training? Again, really cheap ways to drive marketing activities and double down on certain things. And one of them is make sure that everyone on your team, from the host, the greeter, the host, to the servers, to supervisors, to sommeliers, to food runners, to chefs, to kitchen staff, to maintenance staff, everyone understands that these little pieces will help to raise the customer's experience and therefore help to raise awareness for us so that we can then get the good reviews. Now, I want to say something, Jade, to your ask for reviews. Make sure the people that you ask for reviews are happy.
Yeah.
Right. I saw an automation go out, and it was just a standard automation that came out on the end of a survey. On the end of a receipt, and it was, if you're happy with us, go ahead and fill this out. And the service I received was horrific, and they gave me a great way to give feedback. So if you can, and you've got a marketing system that allows you to tag people, maybe tag the people that aren't happy, right? And that way they don't get the, hey, would you like to rate us on TripAdvisor, Yelp, or Google, right? Because we don't want that to happen.
Right.
So just know who you're doing.
Yeah, in automation, we call that generating your NPS score, your Net Promoter Score. So you should have campaigns and automation in place that when you survey people or ask how they feel, have them rate themselves in a number and then route them appropriately based on their survey or click responses, and then only ask the happy people to publicly promote you, and then the people that had negative feedback. Some of your raving fans start out as complainers because they feel heard. Oh my God, weird. Seen, heard, and loved. So when you reach out to people that complain, they're like, oh my God, you actually heard me. You care. So there's definitely ways to take advantage of all of the data. But talk to the heroes, post in the communities, and ask us about NPS campaigns. We all do these kinds of things all day.
And Scott, I'm going to come back to you, but Sharon, I want to just follow up with you on the Google reviews and what you need to be doing there, because that's also a critical portion. Can you?
Thanks, because my mind was going 100 miles an hour.
I know. I could just see it. I knew you're buzzing. You're like, ah.
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple things that I can say is, number one, reviews are super important. And so you have to get them. It is not optional. So make sure you are getting them. The other thing is, within 14 days of receiving them, regardless whether they're a great review or a bad review, you have to reply.
Can you repeat that, please?
Google looks at it and says, well, clearly you don't care about your clients.
Can you repeat that, please?
Within 14 days of receiving any review, it needs to be replied to.
Why?
Because Google rates you on whether you reply to your reviews or not. And when you do not, they say, well, then you clearly don't care about your own customers.
Again, I'm gonna just jump up here because change, snap change. I want you to pay attention to what Sharon just said. Okay. This is critical to your Google success. It's free, it's easy, and if you don't do it, you're gonna get spanked hard. Okay, we don't want that.
It's also the number one most powerful review platform in the world. So
there's that too.
Yeah.
Right. So the key thing with that is making sure that those reviews are happening. Now, again, to Jade's point, Sharon, is there within the Google review, because a lot of people I'm discovering are not familiar with the platform. Is there a way to respond back publicly and or privately to a poster? And can I delete a bad post or bad review?
You can request it to be taken down, but everybody has to understand, the first time you hit the little flag that says, like, I want this review to be reviewed, you need to reply to that review first. And here's why. And I'll give you a great example. We were out seeing a customer yesterday, and they're like, listen, there's this guy that lives across the street from us, and he has put this horrendous review out there. We've never pulled his car into our automotive business ever, but he gets mad at us all the time about just the busyness of how busy we are through the day. And he works nights and he's trying to sleep. And so, she said, what do I do? Well, what you do is, first of all, you figure out if from that Gmail that's listed on it, is the person actually a client and ever been there? So if you don't know if they are because their email account is not in your CRM, you want to start out by saying something like, I would love to help you and help to understand the issue. However, I don't see you as ever having been a client in our database. So I need, first of all, for you to explain to me exactly when you were here and exactly what, occurred. And if you do not want to do this publicly on this forum, because it is all public, please reach out to us, click on the call button here and specifically ask for me and put your name there. Okay.
Right.
If they do not reply, it says, but then also you have to say, and please put out here that you have reached out to us. Okay. So that we make sure that, we know that it's you. All right. Because their name is not going to be out there. It's only their Gmail address.
Right.
So if after 7 days they have not replied back, and just put, we're very sorry we haven't heard back from you. Clearly there must have been a misunderstanding of which winery you were at. And, we would love to invite you to our winery and so you can have a phenomenal experience.
Right.
And then after you put that up, the next day you're going to flag that, and you're going to flag it saying that it is, and like some of them say, I think, can't remember what it is, inappropriate, won't be inappropriate, it'll be, doesn't apply to yours, I think is probably the one you're going to select.
Yep.
But you have to put, because it's a bot that reads it. And then after 7 days, if nothing's been done, do it again. And after 7 days, do it again. And the third time you do it, it begins getting customer service attention and being reviewed by an actual person.
Interesting.
So
there's some gold right there.
It takes work, but if you really need that to go away. Yeah. And the other thing I'm going to tell you is, like, Google's starting to drop star reviews off that don't have writing.
Right.
Okay. So, but if you reply, it has writing. So even if they leave a 5-star or a 4-star and reply to it, whatever you say, like, thanks, love to get some feedback. If you want to reply back to this and tell us what was like your most like spectacular process of being here, or what wine you particularly liked, or if there was anything that really just stood out, so that other individuals that read this review will understand what they might, expect when coming to our winery. Like one of our clients, if it's a 4-star review, they'll be like, wait, come back. We want to earn our star.
Right.
And so they're cute about it and fun about it in a way that's sophisticated, Mm-hmm. And so, just keep all that in mind. And the other thing is, when you send a review request out, I'm going to say this and you're going to want to write this down. Okay. When you send a review request out, keep in mind, a lot of people do not understand that how to fill the stars in. So they get a review and they're like, oh yeah, I love this place. And it's the first time maybe they've ever done this. So when you send that request out, whether it's text or anything, just start off by saying, click on the link below. Get started by hitting the far right star, so you're not asking for a 5-star review. You're explaining to them how to do it, because a lot of people leave this really great review and then you'll look and you go, I got a 1-star.
Oh no.
But I have this really great written review, because it might have been an older person. They just didn't understand like how to fill the stars in. So they hit the first one and they're like hitting it. And none of the rest of the stars are filling in. They don't have to realize they have to go all the way to the far one and click it. So instruct them to walk them through the process, because that way, if they weren't even thinking about giving you like maybe a 3 or 4-star, they just filled in 5 and now they don't know how to make it go away. So they're just going to leave it.
Yeah. And by the way, I would encourage anybody going through that process to try and evaluate someone else's. Mm-hmm. Because until you go through it, you can't, like the Keep Marketplace has a review. And I'm telling you, I was able to get a bunch of reviews, but not until I really understood it, gave them very specific direction. And by the way, I'm very blatant. It's like, could I request a 5-star review from you? So I'm not just asking for a review, and I'm not asking for a 4. And in these times of Uber, everybody knows that the difference between a 5 and a 4-star makes a big difference.
Yep.
So stressing that,
Mhm.
I mean, someone might say you don't deserve the 5, and okay, I'll take that. But if I'm asking for a 5,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the other thing, same way on what you just said, we encourage you to give examples like in your review request, that, and just start out by saying, like, as you know, every small business relies on reviews heavily. And it's important for us, for other people to understand the amazing experience that they can have. So we want you to share what was your biggest, moment of, like, wow, your biggest wow moment, your biggest, aha moment, whatever that is, while you were here, that just like was like blew you out of the park kind of thing. However you want to phrase it. And we phrase it different ways with doctors compared to, restaurants to whatever. And then we give them examples like, you had really enjoyed our wine tasting because it gave you such a great idea of exactly what our different wines tasted like, so that you knew which one you wanted to buy a bottle or a glass of, that you loved our vineyard tour and just the rolling hills and how pretty it looked and just how picturesque and just calming it was, or maybe it was your experience, with our, dessert bar or whatever it might be. Give them a few examples. And you can even say, like, some of our other customers have said things like blah, 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 blah. And that way you're giving them positive emotions that you're putting in their head. And they're going, yeah, I resonate with that. And now it's kind of more of a cut and paste or a type that and add to it. Because Google's wanting to see 200 characters out of them in the written part of their review.
Interesting. Okay.
So, and you're not going to get that from everybody, but you're talking 2 sentences. So if you don't encourage them and entice them and guide them, that, and you also want to make sure if they had one little bad experience, that all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, what was my best experience? Well, I really loved this. I
Right.
really just loved the drive into the winery. It was so pretty, and you've just taken whatever might have been like that little hiccup that they had, if any, and you've just taken it out of their head completely.
That's such a fantastic idea. And I think what I love about this is that there's so much like little subtle things to reminding them to hit the star on, the star on the right. I would never have thought to ask them to do that, but sure. I can see my mom doing something like that. I know, because she doesn't watch these. So, but yeah, that's,
Yeah.
and the other thing too is the little nuances of the 200 characters and making sure they do add. One of the things that some wineries do, not everyone does, is that they ask, they tell the servers to ask to put who the server was in the review. And the reason being for that is 2 things. One, in some of the wineries that we consult with, they really want to make sure that the server has left an impression, part of the community, Jade, in that whole thing, and making sure that they built that relationship with them. And one of the ways is that, Vlad might have remembered your name, but did you remember Vlad's name, right? Because maybe Vlad didn't check you out at the cash because the way your internal processes work. I think that's kind of critical. The other part of it is what they were doing is that's allowing for an internal contest, things like that, and we were getting some feedback. So it served 2 purposes. Some companies like to do that, some don't. And then the other thing is I'm seeing now QR codes on the way out. And there was the one was just so bloody audacious. It was as you come in on there, as you drive into the winery, all lovely signage and all that stuff. When you leave, there's a massive 2-foot by 2-foot QR code on both passenger and driver's side saying, if you loved us, if you love us, how did it go? I should have taken a picture of it, but if you loved us, let us know. And if you didn't, sorry to see you go, or something. It was something like that. It was kind of cheeky, but because it was a busy area and you had to wait for traffic. So you're sitting there, so might as well just click and get it and start that process.
So extrapolating a little bit on what Sharon said. So a couple
please
of points. One is kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier. During these times, this is where you need to really focus on improving operational efficiencies. And a couple of things that Sharon mentioned. Again, giving explicit instructions that a 2-year-old can understand. Click the star on the right. What are you doing in all of your marketing, in all of your messaging that you need to simplify?
Right.
Because we all are in our own bubble and we understand everything. You know, you work at your winery, you know exactly how to get there. But what about that person who's visiting for the first time? You know, you need to make sure that the instructions on your website are in plain English, and that the landmark that you're referring to is very visible, or that the road sign that you're mentioning, you know, that you're pointing out that the road sign's on the left-hand side of the road, but you're going to turn right, you know,
Yeah.
something like that. So again, improving operational efficiencies, look at everything that you're doing and how can you do it better and make a better customer experience for those that are visiting. And then secondly, kind of extrapolating on that, you know, what Jay was talking about earlier is that referrals are free. They don't cost you anything. Well, getting Google reviews can be free as well. And here's a way to improve operational efficiency. You can take those Google reviews and use that in other marketing. So you've got testimonials. You don't have to have 15 different ways to capture testimonials. You can have the Google reviews be what you're going to put into your social media ads, a social proof, what you're going to put into your lead magnets. You can put in, you know, some of your 5-star reviews. You can embed a widget on your website that pulls your Google reviews in and can rotate them around. And you're only doing the work once.
Yeah.
But if you've kind of listened to like everything that's required, there's a lot of time and devotion that needs to go into your Google reviews. It's not that you can just ask for the Google review. Oh, cool. We got 500 of them, but none of them have any replies. I didn't know that you needed to reply to the Google reviews within 14 days. Well, what does that mean? That means that you need to make an investment in your business to hire somebody that at least part of their job is they are managing the Google reviews. They're the ones who respond to them. They're the ones who flag the ones that are, you know, inappropriate or inapplicable, all of that type of stuff. But then they can also use that, provide that to other marketing members, so on and so forth, to use it elsewhere. It all goes back to the improving operational efficiencies. Yes, you may have an investment in another part-time employee, full-time employee doing other things as well, but that's going to pay off in dividends in many other areas.
Scott, to touch upon that. So from a SOP perspective, standard operating procedure side of it, what we're encouraging the clients I'm consulting with now, we're encouraging them to do is whoever is the person that answers the voicemail and the generic inbox email, hopefully you've got more targeted, but those two, whoever's answering those two also is responsible for answering meta inbox communication, and is responsible for dealing with Facebook, Google, Yelp, and TripAdvisor reviews. So that's all part of their job. And so the inbox, the voicemail, and social is 3 times a day. When they get in the morning, that's one of the first things that they do. Just after lunch and an hour before close, they've got to address those things. Then once a day, they're dealing with the reviews. And I don't know, Sharon, maybe if it was you or somebody else told me, the reason why we're doing on a daily basis is it demonstrates responsiveness, not only to the algorithms, but it demonstrates responsiveness to the people that are paying attention to the reviews. If it took you 14 days to get to a review versus if it took you less than 24 hours, that speaks volumes to who you are as a business. And it kind of really, again, extends Jade's conversation around really building community and all, and getting that relatedness component to it. Yeah. And if there's a problem, let's resolve it, right away. So great point, Scott. George, what do you have to say about this topic in general?
What's been going on here? Yeah, I tell you, being responsive makes a huge difference. I mean, just so you get an idea, I I have a chat on my site. I have a contact us form that comes right to me and to my phone.
Right.
And I'm usually responding within an hour to those.
Right.
And that's impressive to a lot of people. I've had conversations with people and they go, oh, guys, but I just did that. And they're impressed because I'm on it. Well, I mean, I'm on it because that's my bread and butter.
Yep.
And I want to make sure that they feel the love, the kindness. It's like, man, if this guy's this responsive at the first sales call, you kind of assume that's going to happen when I'm delivering. So being timely on a review reflects a lot more than, oh, I'm trying to keep my ratings high, in Google. It just shows something about the culture of your business and how responsive you are from a customer service perspective.
Yeah, that's such a great kind of wrap on that. When we look at setting up the meta side, which is what working with Paul on, is setting up all of your meta infrastructure, being able to have the proper business page and access to everything gives you the ability to have multiple people being able to respond to and go in and deal with the inbound messaging. Sharon, from a Google perspective, who has authority to be able to go in and authorize and not authorize, but respond to those Google reviews? Is that anybody or just somebody who's got admin rights, or can control that?
You have to be a manager and owner of the panel to respond to the reviews.
Okay, so manager, yeah, not a manager in the store, but you have to have manager admin level access
on your Google Business Profile panel.
Okay, so that might be one where, depending on who's in charge of all this stuff, that may be one that you, for however you deal with security and things like that, that might be something that gets delegated to someone else possibly, or you just train them so that they know where to click and go through and do all that. So
the
Scott,
nice thing is once you put their email in there, every time a new review comes up, they are emailed and notified that a new review came up, and there's one button they just click in the email and they're in the review to reply.
Right.
So Google makes your life so simple.
Okay, perfect. That's good to know. So Scott, you brought forth operational activities and efficiencies. What other areas in the marketing space can we look at from operational? And I'm preceding this conversation because I've got you and George on both ends of the bar up here. From a content creation, content syndication, how can you leverage AI, ChatGPT tools and things like that to be able to create content and then re-syndicate it so we're really leveraging our time and our resources? So I'll start with you, Scott, on that one, then we'll bounce to George, and then Sharon, I've got a follow-up final question, which is I want to address the Facebook post I sent you over text the other day. So Scott, go ahead.
So as far as like operational efficiencies, this is a great time as well to make sure that you've got automations in place.
Right.
So, if you're expecting this influx of leads, whatever methods that is going to be, that's going to be coming from, make sure you've got your follow-up sequences in place. You've got the content in the emails, you've got everything connected, and you've tested it out that they're going to go out at a certain date and time that you want those things to happen, whether it's emails or text messages or both or whatever that it is. Your long-term nurture, you want to make sure that you have, really ideally, you want to have your entire customer journey fleshed out in your automation system. So from the time that they come in and they're like, hey, we're interested in what you have to offer, all the way to the time that they've become a customer and they've had their experience with you, how can you keep them coming back? How can you create brand ambassadors so that they're bringing others with them when they come back?
Right.
You want to make sure that now is the time to really start thinking through and looking at what you have. And I know that, Mark and you and I have discussed a lot of wineries use MailChimp for their marketing platform.
Yes.
Unfortunately, MailChimp is somewhat limited in building out the type of customer journey follow-ups and sequences that you need. Now is the time to be looking at, is this the right platform to do everything that we need it to do? Correct. Or should we be looking for something that is going to give us the tools that we need in an efficient and effective and cost-effective way that's going to allow us to scale and to grow.
Yep.
These are times, again, going back to what I said earlier, don't cut a tool that you're using just simply because of the cost. That's not a good reason to do that. Is it doing what you need it to do? And if not, you can cut it, but replace it.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important. And so from my perspective, on the email marketing side, build out your customer journey. Have your communications, your emails, your text messages, all of that in place, and get that all tested and fine-tuned so that it runs like clockwork all year round. Because realistically, once you build it, that's your huge investment of time. Then it just requires simple maintenance going forward.
Yeah. And with that, many people speak about the fact that, these automation tools become like a second employee or a third or an additional employee part-time from that perspective, because they're dealing with a lot of that follow-up, especially if your winery deals with multiple customer profiles. So if they're dealing with tasting, retail, club, but they're also doing event activities, you've got multiple people dealing with all that stuff. It's a really, really simple way to elevate the customer experience, drive efficiencies, and also ensure that nobody gets lost in the cracks. So George, from that perspective, let's dive over to you, and how can we leverage content and double down and utilize that in other areas and things, so that we're being really efficient with our time and our efforts?
We had spoken the last time we had, the content specific meetings, that you can throw some AI at it.
Right.
Take an article that you found somewhere, you have in our library, and modified it enough so it's different, it's seen as unique by Google, and it connects with your audience. If it was an article you wrote before, just run it through. Now you're plagiarizing from yourself, but because it sounds, it's written just different enough, you have a unique set of content. And one of the things I always laugh about, somebody asked me, it's like, well, suppose people notice that I'm repeating my content. And I go, man, if you have people that in tune with your content, you are the rock star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because you can definitely leverage that. And the other part of it too is you can also use that in terms of how you your audiences, right? So if you know that you've got different audiences, you can now take that same article, and again, analytics and research will show you this, but if part of your target audience is on Facebook and a different demographic is finding you through Google, then take that same article and change it and write it, maybe write it as a video script and have it voiced over or something like that, and put some pictures with somebody talking about it, right? That's a way that you can leverage that. Now, Sharon, and I, just because I'm that way, I just quickly looked at my Facebook posts and my Facebook while we were there. That's where I zoned out for a second because I wanted to prep for this. There's no less than 3 people right now claiming that you can't use AI to create content online. They happen to be copywriters that are posting this, but they're saying that you can't use ChatGPT to create content and post it and make it searchable and readable and not get penalized by Google. Can you help us there?
Okay. Well, first of
So
all,
much
that's not
disinformation.
true. Yeah. In fact, so not true that Google's released, Bard. And so, they're catching up with ChatGPT and the release of their own software. But I think the biggest thing that everybody has to understand, and it was I'm going to reiterate what was just said, by the fact that you really don't want to just use ChatGPT and just take that article and stick it out there, because what you don't want to do is run into the point that, your articles are bland and blah, and they don't talk about your business specifically. If you want to avoid getting, and I don't want to say penalized by Google, but not getting this high of a rating to your brand, you need to change it 10 to 15%. So I always tell people, you definitely want to add specific things about your business to the article. So your business name, maybe something specific about a product or a service that you do within and around the article, and maybe even like, throwing in, something that might be a review that was left by somebody, and drop that kind of in the bottom of the article, and a call to action.
Yep.
If you type in something in Chat GPT and it's a subject matter, maybe that subject becomes an answer to a question, and you start your article out with a question that the article is going to answer. But always make sure you read it to be regardless, because even though we use some AI systems, for some of the work that we do for our clients, just because it familiarizes us more with their industry, we're always going and making sure that we understand how our client talks, so that it words and reads more like how they talk about it. And there's often stuff that comes in those AI articles that if you're not paying attention, they're really not relevant to your business.
Mhm.
And so, again, 10 to 15%, but take the time and read the article and make sure it sounds like you. But if you're going to eventually get into the BARD system, one of the things you're going to find out from Google's system is they're looking at your Google Business Profile panel, posts you put up, questions you put out there, the way that you write about
Really?
business on your website. And then and it will compose an article. And then if the article isn't exactly what you want, you can hit a button that says search Google, and it will go out to the web and learn more and come back.
Interesting.
So the more data you're putting out on your Google Business Profile panel on your website, blogging, posting, all that kind of stuff down the line, if you're going to use Google's system, it's going to learn how you talk and stuff, and it's going to write those articles based off of how you talk in your own business, so that it isn't going to be an article that sounds kind of foreign and you're putting it up there and your clients are going, where did this come from?
Right.
This had to be an AI.
I think that's a really good point to bring up, is that it needs to be in your own voice, and you need to make sure that it really speaks to what messaging you're trying to get along. Jade, you're nodding like, yes, do you have thoughts to say?
I bet she does.
I'm sure she does.
I've been playing with Chat GPT, and I'm not an AI expert, and I don't have prompt recommendations or anything like that. But I will say that I've played around with it a little bit, and attempted to get it to like emulate my humor with no success. Probably because I'm weird, in a good way, and I own that. But my copywriting expresses that. So I think that when it comes to stuff like Chat GPT, not Bard, but Chat GPT specifically, where it's scraping and giving you the best possible answer, of course that's going to be like plagiarized material. So it's just consider it a starting off point, and then like literally sit there and read it out loud and change everything about it until it sounds like you, because people are going to purchase and join your family because of you, and they're going to stay because of how they feel when they're there. And if you have stolen and plagiarized copywriting or any sort of inauthentic expression, they're going to exit at any point.
I think I love the term inauthentic expression, because that's exactly what it is. Scott, you were going to say?
Yeah. So I attended a webinar a couple weeks ago on the legal aspects of using AI generated content.
Okay? That's good. Okay.
So, number one is you can't copyright what you have ChatGPT or any other AI tool create for you. Okay. Now the interesting part of it was, in a different webinar, the person doing the webinar said, it had ChatGPT create an article, and then they knew that they had written their own blog post prior to 2021, and they copied and pasted the content from ChatGPT into one of the plagiarism tools that's used online, and it didn't find anything that it had actually plagiarized. Now it is gathering concepts from all over the web and everything. So that kind of goes into the legality thing, is that, this is not your content. You can't copyright it. Not going to go down that rabbit trail. If you want the webinar, I'll get you the link to it, so that you can kind of understand. The key thing that I think that Jade mentioned, and again, going back to what you pointed out there, Mark, was, the inauthenticity. And something that Jade mentioned is that people are going to buy because of you, and they're going to stay because of how they feel.
Right.
So it goes back to the old rule of why people buy or how people buy. They buy first based upon emotion, and then it's justified by logic. Okay. I just finished writing a sales letter for my own business yesterday, and I could have used ChatGPT to probably write it, but it probably would have been written like I think. I'm a left brain, very logical thinker. And it's hard for me to share a story and to relate and bring out the emotion. So that's why it took me 3.5 hours to write that freaking sales letter yesterday morning. But ChatGPT could not have generated my story that I wove into the whole thing to get to the sales message at the end of it. And so going back to what Sharon said, you can use ChatGPT to kind of give you some ideas, and you need to change 10 to 15% of it. You probably need to add 10 or 15% and throw in your story, your experience, your why, because ChatGPT is not going to give that to you. It can't. It's based on facts and data, not the emotional aspect. And only you and I can provide that.
Yeah. I think that's a very important point to understand. Most of the pros that we're talking to right now, they're using this as a content idea generation and as the starting point, but not the ending point. However, I will say that I have, and I'm going to share a prompt because I have to, because it saved my butt a number of times. I was failing all the way through school in English. Couldn't write, couldn't spell, still can't. But I own that, and I do my best. Grammarly has been a great tool for me. I actually pay for it because it's so awesome. But what I did the other day, I saw somebody this idea, and so they took their article that they wrote, and it was originally initially envisioned and developed and referred by GPT. Then they went and did, I think, probably 50% updates and edits to it. They then took that and said, please organize this so that it's in 5th grade grammar and correct. So it didn't change anything other than rearrange some of the sentence structure and some of the words, and made and some of the commas and the colons and the periods and things like that, and spaced it out with some different breakpoints. And so I've now started doing that, and that's where I'm finding it's become quite valuable for me, because it elevates my writing a little bit, because I'm quite creative. But to actually put it on paper is quite hard. The other thing I've been doing a lot is using voice to text. And if any of you are using Camtasia, there's an add-on for Camtasia called Audiate. And what it does is it takes your entire process, your entire video, transcribes that, and then you can edit by word as opposed to having looked through the video and edit the individual little sound clips. It's been a game changer. I'm processing videos 3 times faster than I ever did before. But now I'm taking that final version and I'm getting it cleaned up in ChatGPT, because it's still conversational dialogue. It's not written. And there's a nuance between the two. And then what I'm doing with that is, hey, summarize this for a Facebook post, summarize this for an email. So I'm able to take a lot of this training and just excerpt out little bits to use for these various applications. So that's been pretty good from that perspective. Just finalizing with AI and all that. I believe we're finalizing a relationship with Jeff. Jeff is an AI expert. Why is Jeff coming? Jeff's coming because for the last 10 years, he's run a virtual assistant organization with sometimes upwards of 100 VAs working for him. And with the prevalence of ChatGPT, he's had to completely reshift his entire business model, because AI tools have cut his business in half. He's literally laid off half of his staff. So what he did in November is he pivoted and went deep into AI and all of its aspects. And what he's now been able to do is leveraged the tool to help leverage his team, and he's back expanding his team again. And he's found some unique ways of leveraging the tools. And so he's going to come on, and I'm not sure if he'll be a full-on hero yet, or if he's going to come in and kind of guest appearance. But he's got some great stuff that I think he's really kind of dialed in now, and it's I think it's really good, and we all could benefit from that. So not sure when that'll happen. He's right now in the Philippines, but hopefully we're back in California soon.
Oh.
Yes.
I have a great book recommendation. It's called Sorry Spock, Emotions Drive Business.
Very cool.
It's written by Adam Morgan. He's the creative director at Adobe, and obviously has a huge career of like assembling creative teams. And then the CEOs and decision makers are like, yeah, but don't do that.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Hire a creative team and then stifle their creativity. But
yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Yeah.
And Scott, I'll put this up. Thank you. I'll put the link to the video up when we post this up. So thank you for that. So just in closing, and hold on, just do this here. So just in closing and if anybody has any closing remarks, we'll go there. But I just want to kind of just reiterate the opening discussion here is that this is now not the time to start cutting back on marketing advertising. This is the time now to begin to double down on it. Be efficient with it. Really leverage what's available to you. And as Scott said, if you have tools that aren't performing the way they need to, don't get rid of them. Replace them. We've got in the Heroes community, we've got experts in all of the email marketing platforms, whether it's MailChimp, Klaviyo, however you pronounce that one, ActiveCampaign, Ontraport, HubSpot, Salesforce, you name it. If you're using it, there's areas that you can absolutely take it to the next level. Really look at considering leveraging Google. You need to be leveraging Google. Okay. So next week, we're going to be releasing a program, just really explains the whole thing for you. It's no cost if you're a member or if you're just a visitor, that's available to you. Look at your digital, look at your club, look at how you can add value to your club by implementing a low-cost digital model on top of that for club members, and then look at the copy that you're working on. If you are leveraging and relying on email, then absolutely you need to be starting with an audit from that perspective. That's going to be a key thing. And if your winery is really interested in growing community and understanding where that needs to be, I think next week we'll also have Jade's free program out, which is I'm going through it, and it's gold. Like, Jade, you've really outdone yourself. It's amazing.
And that's the free one. Woo!
Yeah, that's the free one. Yeah. And then also in the Facebook side and Meta side, prices are going to be going down as far as your ad spend. And so you have the ability to extend it, but make sure you're set up properly so that, again, you can be efficient with your time, you can be efficient with your resources. And the program that Paul and I have pulled together, I've never seen anything like this. And I've gone through so many Facebook training programs. This really is a completely different approach to it. So, and then we'll also have some more stuff coming on and really dialing in who your avatar is or your customer profile when Brina comes back from her vacation. So looking forward to all of that. Any closing thoughts from the heroes on the panel today? No. Okay, good. Then we've covered it all.
Time to ramp up, not you don't get scared and be like, okay, I'll wait and see what happens. Like, we've all been through COVID. This is nothing. This is nothing.
Absolutely.
You're doing great.
This. And we're here. We got your back. If you need help, just reach out to us, and we're absolutely here to help out. So I guess if everyone else is speechless, then we'll say goodbye. We'll wrap up and watch for all of the individual sessions through the month. And until then, until we see you next time, have a great day, and we look forward to hearing all your success. Bye for now.